Can you hear this pretty well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. This is the second time in the beautiful Palm Springs Leisure Center that I've had the opportunity. And the first time when I came down here to talk, I didn't know I'd be, it was so warm and welcoming, we ended up moving down here. And on the way over, Mary asked me, sent me a text, and all the text said was, "Where are you?" I didn't send her a response because I wasn't really sure. But that's a good question. Where are we? We know approximately where we are. We're here on planet Earth, and this is Palm Springs area. I'm 55 years old, but where are we really? I mean, that's one of the questions that really hit me hard when I was in my young teens. You think you know everything by the time you're about 17, or at least your parents have brought you in and brought you up to snuff as to what's going on in the world. And you think you have a pretty good idea, and then all of a sudden something catastrophic happens, and in my case, I did something crazy. I dragged myself to death. And why? You ask yourself, would a kid go to the brink of his own extinction? I couldn't figure that out. All I know is that I had a lot of experience with alcohol. I got together with a group of kids, and we were having a good time. And one six-pack led to another, and pretty soon my roommate and I had polished up a 24-pack and a very large bottle of tequila, which my roommate claims he didn't have any of. You look back and you think, well, I was a little immature, I would say. But my kids look at me and I'm 55, and I think they think I'm a little immature because, I still haven't settled down. People ask me, well, where do you live? And I say, well, I've got a place in Indian Wells and Minnesota, and my driver's license is Nevada, and my corporation's in Nevada. But we're not usually any of those places.
Yeah.
Because, with the type of work I do, I'm more of a messenger in the spirit world, to bring some of that information out to other people so they can hear some of my experiences. So I'm going to open it up for a minute. How many quitters do we have out here?
What does that mean? Quitter or what?
I don't see any hands.
I quit
smoking.
I quit
Okay, great.
smoking.
There's a quitter.
I quit smoking.
And you quit smoking. Any other quitters?
What do you mean?
Okay, you quit something? Well, did anybody quit drinking alcohol?
I quit drinking port.
Okay.
I never drank, sorry.
Well, I kind of quit drinking after that experience, but we take this quite, literally, the term. One of the things I noticed about our language here is that, when I say, are there any quitters out here, nobody wants to raise their hand. And that's because, for the most part, quitting has a negative connotation. But there's a lot of good things about that word, too. And so Betsy says, well, what do you mean by quitting? And that was a good response. What I found out is, after I had my near-death experience, I quit a lot of things. I wasn't the same person coming back. And it's not because my spirit changed places. It's because I suddenly saw the world in a different light. Now you can imagine I was laying on a bed, and I was lucky I made it to a bed. A lot of kids pass out when they had too much alcohol, but we were at our own apartment, and all of a sudden I was floating out of my body. It's one of the strangest first-time experiences of that. And I was looking down at my body, and I realized that I was still a being. Kind of a scary thing at first, and you think that your body's there, and that's what you are, and that's what you've been told you are for your entire life. But you're something more than that. And you think these eyes are for what you use to see with, and that this brain is what you're thinking with. What was the big shock to me is I was still thinking. Thinking is done outside of the brain. It has nothing to do with the brain. The brain is a hard drive. In fact, later, as guys were explaining things to me, we need our brain in order to process information and do all sorts of tasks and be able to use our body for motion. But the real creativity and who we are is outside the brain, and that's what you call our spirit. And I found out that there's a greater part of us out there in another dimension. They call it our soul. So really, our spirit is just a spark of that soul that comes down into the physical body. So the spirit is really what propels us. I didn't even know there was a distinction between the two at that point, and later on my guides were informing me that the Greeks and the Latins and the Romans, they had hundreds of terms for the word spirit depending on what you were using it as. It's another word that's confusing to people because we don't know if soul or spirit is the same thing or if they're synonymous. And as I was growing up, my mother told me, well, spirit is just another word for the soul. And so that's what I was going with. I didn't understand there was a huge difference there. And I found myself being assisted right away by an energy that is so angelic. It can only be called an angel because that's really what it was. Later on, my guides explained to me that's a guardian angel. A guardian angel comes to you to help you make your transition back. And as soon as I got back into the place that, you know, we call heaven, for the most part, it's another dimension. When I got to the heaven spot, I realized that I had a guide. And that sort of knowing that I had as a kid for much of my life, that I thought was possibly an aspect of me because that's what my grandparents and everyone had told me. Because I always heard things, and it was in this form of a knowing, but I didn't know exactly what that meant, and I thought possibly everybody had that. So when I asked my parents, they said, no, it's just an aspect of you. And I really thought that was true. Well, we all have a guide. And one of the things I wanted to bring up is, I had to look at my notes, how many of you think it would be a great idea to be blindfolded and running through the forest?
No.
We got one taker here.
Yeah, one time.
And really that's
Only
what
one.
we are when we're given our life here. We are blindfolded. You know, we really don't know where our direction is going. We don't know why we came here. We don't know what our purpose is. We don't know what our mission is, and we don't know what God expects of us. So in a sense, we're blindfolded and we're running through the forest. So we're given guides to kind of help with that process. That's what it's for. So what are angels for? We can be so misguided that we can be running through the forest and we can crash into the tree and we'll probably die. And if you ever heard of angel intervention, you know, there's been many, many cases of people that should have passed on that they didn't because it wasn't their time, and because there was some sort of an angelic intervention that stopped them from destroying themselves. And because of this, I was explaining to somebody, we ended up co-authoring a book called Journey with an Angel. It's her journey. It's by Lisa Allshafer. And I explained a lot about the dimensions and how the angelic realm really operated. But I only really got to experience a short time there. Because when I first met my father guide, I thought, well, this is amazing. You know, and he was telling me it's not time for me, that I need to go back to Earth. And I said, well, I'm not going back down there. You know, I mean, there just wasn't anything. At that point in my life, I was 17 years old. I thought I was going to be a rock star or something. And I was playing guitar 6 hours a day. Black Sabbath, Aerosmith, I mean, you know, just the hard rock stuff that I could find. And all of that made great sense to me. But after my near-death experience, those vibrations no longer really mattered. And I didn't know why I didn't enjoy that stuff. And I found out later, because they're not harmonious with our being. And having come back from a near-death experience and being dead 12 hours, and the fact that it took a legion of angels to really bring me back to the recuperative state I needed to be so that I could come back and do my work. I needed vibrational therapy, not party time. And I wasn't interested in alcohol, and a lot of perspectives changed. You know, and I think about how many different perspectives there are out in this universe and on this planet. And this last week we were in Dallas, Texas, and we were listening to a motivational speaker, Andy Andrews, get up and talk. And Andy had an interesting beginning. For some reason, Andy ended up sleeping on a beach, living under a pier, didn't have any money. And the only solace he found is that some people had a garage door open and he could sneak in there. And he really liked the ones where they had a refrigerator. But not so much for the food, but because there was warmth coming out from the underside and he could lay down by the refrigerator. And for many years, Andy wasn't quite sure why he came to this planet. It was obviously he was on a difficult journey to start with. But he meets a mystery man out on the pier. His name is Jones, and he doesn't give any other name. And Jones tells him that your mission is unspeakably important. And that's what I'm here to tell you guys today. Because each one of us has an unspeakable mission that's important, and if that one cog in the universe is missing, there's something that humanity is missing. And it doesn't mean that we won't have a difficult journey of it. Now, Andy later became a best-selling author, and people would walk up to him and say, "Andy, my God, I've got all your books, I love them." He said, "Well, where do you live?" And he said, "Well, and so." He said, "Oh, I probably slept in your garage." And you know, it doesn't really matter, in his opinion, you know, he doesn't consider himself this amazing lecturer, motivational speaker or anything. He calls himself a noticer. And that's beautiful, because what a noticer does is different than what other people do. They're not just a messenger, they go out and they notice things. And they're gaining new perspectives. And when somebody asks me, "You travel all over, you're never at home, what are you doing?" And it suddenly dawned on me that weekend, I'm gaining new perspectives. And it really couldn't come from a place of being able to be the right messenger for the spirit world unless I had some sort of perspective, would I? And so I was getting ready to talk today, and I thought, you know, I'm going to take a couple of notes. And when you channel a book, and here's my book, Messages in the Spirit World, it's a little different than, you know, saying, well, I spent all this time writing it, so I thought I'm going to open it up and see what's in here. So on the first page, I get to, "Life is not what you think it is."
There you go.
And you know, that's a strong statement. But, you know, we live by our truths, and this is a strong statement. And also, most books available today on spirituality are leading you away from the truth. I don't think they mean to do that. I think that's just, you know, somebody else said that, somebody else said this, and somebody else said that, and therefore that must be the truth. And we've continued on with these traditions for thousands of years of things that may not necessarily be the truth. And in the next sentence, I say, and it took a near-death experience for me to realize. And I thought, who wrote this thing? Because first off, I had an afterlife experience, and it's a little different than a near-death experience. So I'm going to have to make some corrections in my book. And the difference is not minor, it's major. In a near-death experience, our spirit is still connected to our body. And there may be even some minor functions going on, but our consciousness leaves the body. We're still connected, and we may have visions of going to other dimensions, and some people say they don't go very far, and some people say they go up through a white tunnel. I went through the white tunnel. So it's like a light. It's a brilliant hue. It's a picture on the front of my book. Is an art piece that Meg had painted before I had met her many years. And when I saw that, I said, I'm home. That looks familiar. And what the guide said is that's a shortcut from fourth dimension, which is where you go when you leave your body immediately, to the sixth dimension where our souls reside. And that's all it's there. It's just a dimension for massive energy units we call the soul. And the soul is just a spark of our Creator. And above that Creator, there's a super Creator. So my guides have divided them into two categories. One, a universal Creator who creates our souls, and then the Creator that creates the universal creators. And you can call it Source, you can call it Master Creator, that's what my guides say. And you can call it other things. The terminology isn't important, but what's important is realizing there's something greater out there. And in our 12-dimensional model, what my guides put in the book, really it forms a perfect circle. And we have lived hundreds of thousands of lives. And it's, you can't even wrap your brain around how old the soul really is. Which kind of makes foolishness of the term, are you a young soul or an old soul? Because I think we're all old souls, really. And, apparently the universal Creator, when he created the souls, had done this so long ago that those numbers we don't even imagine. We can't imagine that this earth is 2-some billion years old. We can't imagine that we've got footprints in the sand in stratus that are 1 million years old. That just doesn't make any sense to us. Because what we've been taught is that we're a few thousand years old. So, a lot of fallacies started to make sense to me after this near-death experience. But one of the things that were most interesting is that our true purpose, we've been blindfolded so long, we aren't sure why we're here. And so in the book I talk about many different spiritual functions. What's the soul's functions, and they're different. We talk about the different levels of heaven, for instance. There's Principium, all these different states. It was very shocking to find out that within the level of heaven, there's different places we go, depending on where we need to be. And I started looking back in the Bible after my near-death experience because I read it a number of times before I'd had that, because I've been confirmed as a Lutheran. And it said in there that you can move mountains with your mind. Now I understand, we really can. This universe is a lot more magical than we understand. I understand that many miracles are just part of, the way the universe is. It's never going to be completely understood because we don't have terms. If we do have terms, then we've confused them with another word. We don't really understand what we're fighting over in some of the wars. And it's generally the problem that we're having is an understanding one another. That this planet that we came to is about, creating, having experiences, helping humanity, and being a good noticer. Going out and having experiences. You can't sit in one place, or you don't get the same perspective. A good photographer, when he takes a picture, he tries the picture from many different angles. That's just an example of a perspective. When Jesus came to show that he could walk on water, we thought nobody can do that but Jesus. Well, how do we know? Here the other day I hear about this person that's talking about this is what they're giving classes on. In fact, I taught Meg to walk on water and now she thinks she's Jesus. But we can do pretty much anything
Where are the
we put
rocks?
our mind to. And when I first met her, I've got kind of a comical story. She knew I was psychic and that I had a little different skill talent than maybe their average person. And we were walking the park, and I said, Meg, I'm going to just give you a small demonstration. I'm going to walk through this tree. So I walked right up to the tree as if I was going through it, but I went nowhere. In fact, it hurt a little, and then I said to her, I think I'm going to have to work on that one. But today, another miracle happened. I saw a tree that I could walk through. And so I posted it on my Facebook. It's a giant redwood. In fact,
Yeah.
you've got a lane cut right through it.
Yeah.
So I rest my case. Anything is possible. There's a way to get through a tree. We just haven't figured out all the technologies yet. So my biggest takeaway is that we're here on this planet to raise our level of awareness. That's not our consciousness. That's a misunderstood term. Consciousness are states that we reside in, and within those levels of states, there's all these levels of awareness. And we came here to awaken, it's not to stir up trouble, but to awaken ourselves to the truth of who we are and what we really came here to do. So, as professional awakeners that you are now, I don't say anything to anyone that you don't already know. And in some cases, people say, wow, I learned something new today. You learned something old that you'd forgotten.
Remembered.
And you just remembered it at this point. And I was thinking about, when you go to school and all the things that you forget. Does anybody remember what you took in high school? I certainly don't. The statistics, the formulas, and all the things that, it shows that you're trainable. It doesn't seem like it was important now. And as I get older, really what's important is just loving other people and finding nice people to hang with, and being able to help one another. So tonight, a lot of you know Arlene Hoover. I want you just to say a nice little prayer. I think what she's done is she's fallen and she's cracked a rib. She wasn't feeling good tonight. And so I've got a very powerful mathematical formula I want to share with everybody, and that's 722-227. And when you use that mathematical formula, you're calling up legions of angels to come and help. And when three or more are gathered, the prayer becomes much more powerful. So I'd just like to say a short little prayer. Arlene Hoover, 722-227. We pray that the pain on your side, the cracked rib that you're experiencing, will heal itself quickly. You'll be able to join and come back with the rest of us soon. So be it. One of the most important parts of the prayer is to end the prayer. Because we have three minds. We have a conscious mind, subconscious, and a superconscious. And it's the superconscious mind that is waiting to start manifesting your ideals. So if you just keep the prayer open, they're just going to be waiting forever. So end each prayer with so be it, or amen, or something, whatever makes you feel, empowered. And remember the mathematical formula. That all the demons in the world do not have access to the angelic realm. And so when you say 722-227, you're trumping all those energies and things that aren't in our best interest. Now, as a special gift tonight to everybody, those that don't have a copy of my book, I've got copies over there and I'm giving them away. And I'll sign them if you want. And, the best thing to share the message with everyone is to get these copies out there. And maybe you'll tell a friend or two that, there's an awakening book in the process. Thank you very much.